Shalom, welcome back to the Sequential Zohar series. In this chapter, the Zohar speaks about three roots of destruction: idolatry, bloodshed, and sexual corruption. But as always, the Zohar does not read these only on the surface. It does not leave them as simple moral categories or as religious labels for other people. The Zohar turns the mirror inward. It asks, where do these forces live inside the human being? Where do they hide in the body, in emotion, in desire, in speech, in exile, and even in the letters of the divine name? The chapter begins from the verse, "And Hashem Elohim commanded the man." On the surface, this is God's command to Adam in the garden. But the Zohar hears something deeper in the word commanded. It says, this word points to idolatry, because idolatry is the first distortion that enters the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And this is very important. Idolatry is not only bowing to a statue. Idolatry is whenever something created becomes the ruler of the soul. Money can become an idol. Status can become an idol. Approval can become an idol. Fear can become an idol. Even our own ego can become an idol. The sign is simple. When something outside the light controls our emotions, our choices, our peace, and our direction, then we have handed power to it. We may not call it worship, but the soul has already bowed. The Zohar connects this to the liver, called kaved in Hebrew, meaning heavy. The liver is the place of heaviness, anger, pressure, and dense reaction. That is why the sages say that whoever becomes angry is as if he worships idols. Because in anger, a person forgets the one source. The moment becomes God. The insult becomes God. The wounded ego becomes God. And this is why anger feels so consuming. It narrows the world until only one thing exists: my injury, my frustration, my control, my need to be right. That is the inner idol. It is not outside. It is enthroned in the heat of the body. Then the Zohar moves to bloodshed. The verse says, the man, and the Zohar connects this to the verse, whoever sheds man's blood, by man shall his blood be shed. But again, the teaching is not only about literal murder. Bloodshed also happens through humiliation. When we shame someone, when we expose them, when we crush their dignity, when we destroy their name through speech, the blood rises to their face. something living in them is struck. This is why words are not small. A tongue can become a sword. A joke can become a wound. A private whisper can become an execution. The Zohar places this force in the gall, marah, bitterness. The gall is connected with the sword of the angel of death, because bitterness kills quietly. It spreads through the heart, and the arteries flee from it. This is a terrifying but beautiful image. The heart wants life. The heart wants movement. But bitterness makes life contract. The more a person lives through bitterness, resentment, and humiliation, the more the inner blood becomes disturbed. Bloodshed begins as a spiritual atmosphere before it becomes an action. Then the Zohar speaks about sexual corruption or broken boundaries of intimacy. On the simple level, the chapter discusses forbidden relationships, but mystically, it is talking about the violation of spiritual order. It is about mixing what should not be mixed, exposing what should remain covered, and pulling sacred energy into places where it cannot remain holy. The Zohar places this force in the spleen, associated with black blood and hidden darkness. It quotes the image of the adulterer waiting for twilight, saying, "No eye will see me." This is not only about secrecy in the outer world. It is about the inner twilight, the place where a person wants desire without responsibility, pleasure without truth, and connection without covenant. So, the three forces form a pattern. Idolatry distorts the source of devotion. Bloodshed distorts the sanctity of another person's life and dignity. Sexual corruption distorts the vessel of union. One attacks worship. One attacks life. One attacks covenant. And when these three are active, the tree of knowledge becomes a place of mixture. Good and evil become confused. The person may still speak spiritual words, but the inner order is broken. The mouth can say God, while the body serves anger. The mind can speak wisdom, while the tongue sheds blood. The heart can seek light, while desire pulls the soul into fragmentation. The Zohar then takes this even higher. It says that exile itself is like the uncovering of the Shechinah. The Shechinah is the divine presence, the mother of Israel, the indwelling feminine presence of God among the people. When Israel sins, the Shechinah goes into exile with them. Her covering is removed. Her honor is handed over to forces that do not belong to her. This is not meant to make us imagine God as weak. It means that when human beings disconnect from holiness, the divine presence is no longer revealed in dignity. The world still contains light, but the light is hidden under confusion. Sacred flow is captured by the wrong vessels. The chapter calls this the power of the mixed multitude. These are the Nephilim, Giborim, Amalekites, Rephaim, and Anakim, the same 5 groups we saw before. In this chapter, they stand between the letters of the divine name. They stand between the upper hay and the lower hay. They prevent the Vav from joining them. In simple language, the flow is blocked. The upper mother and lower daughter cannot unite. Heaven and earth cannot align. The river dries up. The tree of life cannot pour openly, because if the flow descends while the mixed forces are in between, those forces will feed from the holiness. This is one of the deepest ideas in the chapter. Sometimes the light withholds itself, not because the light is absent, but because the vessel is mixed. If abundance came too early, the wrong part of us would use it. The ego would use it. The anger would use it. The appetite would use it. The mixed multitude inside would fake nourishment from the tree of life. So concealment can also be mercy. Delay can also be protection. Dryness can be a hidden guarding of holiness. The Zohar says that as long as the mixed multitude is mixed within Israel, there is no full unity in the letters of the name. But when that mixture is removed, then the verse will be fulfilled. On that day, Hashem shall be one, and his name one. This is not only about the end of history, it is about the end of inner fragmentation. When anger is no longer God, when the tongue no longer wounds, when desire no longer breaks covenant, then the name begins to join inside the person. The soul becomes one. Thought, speech, body, and action stop pulling in different directions. Then the Torah becomes tree of life. The person becomes attached to a living wisdom, not merely to information. The Zohar says Israel becomes united with Torah. And Torah is the queen, Malchut. From her side, Israel are called children of kings. That phrase is powerful. Children of kings does not mean arrogance. It means dignity. It means the soul remembers its origin. A royal soul does not need idols because it already belongs to the king. A royal soul does not need to humiliate others because it does not gain life by spilling another person's dignity. A royal soul does not cheapen intimacy because it understands that union is a vessel for divine presence. Then the Zohar explains the verse, "It is not good for man to be alone. I will make him a help opposite him." It reads this through the mystery of Mishnah, Metatron, exile, and the realm of permitted and forbidden, pure and impure, kosher and unfit. This means that in the world of exile, Torah appears not only as pure light, but also as categories, boundaries, distinctions, and correction. We need teaching that tells us what helps and what opposes us. We need wisdom that can say yes and no. We need a path that can separate the clean from the unclean inside us. If Israel is worthy, this Mishnah becomes a help. It supports the soul in exile. It gives structure. It gives discernment. It says, this is permitted, this is pure, this is kosher, walk here. But if Israel is not worthy, the same realm becomes opposite. It confronts the soul through impurity, unfitness, and prohibition. That is the mystery of help opposite him. The very thing that helps us can also stand against us until we become aligned. Discipline is a help when the soul wants truth. Discipline is an enemy when the ego wants freedom without holiness. The chapter ends with Moses. It says that because of the mixed multitude, Moses was buried outside the Holy Land, and no one knows his grave. Mystically, burial means concealment. Resurrection means revelation. Moses is the soul of Torah, hidden in exile, concealed until the final correction, when he is revealed with the two Messiahs. This is extremely deep. Moses is not lost. He is hidden. The true Torah is not gone. It is concealed. The queen is separated from her husband. The inner union is delayed, but the delay is not defeat. It is waiting for purification. So, what do we take from this chapter? We take a very practical mirror. what rules me? That is the question of idolatry. Whom have I wounded with speech, contempt, or hidden resentment? That is the question of bloodshed. Where have I allowed desire, secrecy, or confusion to break sacred order? That is the question of covenant. And we also take hope. The Zohar is not teaching this to trap us in guilt. It is teaching us where the repair begins. When we stop calling the idol normal, repair begins when we stop calling humiliation honesty. Repair begins when we stop calling broken desire love. Repair begins when we restore the letters of the name inside our own life. The liver must be softened by surrender. The gall must be sweetened by compassion. The spleen must be purified by truth. Then the heart can move freely again. Then the river can flow again. Then the tree of life can nourish the soul without being stolen by the mixed multitude. There is also a quiet daily practice hidden here. Before anger rises, pause and ask, what am I making absolute right now? Am I making this inconvenience into a God? Am I making this person's opinion into a God? Am I making my own wounded pride into a God? That one pause already weakens the idol. Before speaking about someone, pause again and ask, will these words increase life, or will they spill blood in a subtle way? Sometimes truth still has to be spoken, but truth does not need cruelty to become true. Truth spoken with compassion repairs. Truth spoken with contempt becomes a sword. And before desire pulls the soul into secrecy, pause and ask, does this create more holiness? Or does it divide me? Does it strengthen covenant? Or does it make me smaller afterwards? The Zohar is not against desire. It is against desire that disconnects the human being from the divine pattern. So, the work is not to hate the body. The work is to restore the body to the soul. The liver, the gall, and the spleen are not enemies. They are places where exile can lodge, and therefore they are places where redemption can begin. When the body returns to order, the divine name is no longer an idea above us. It becomes a pattern living through us. And this is why the chapter feels so close to daily life. It is not only describing ancient sins, it is describing the moments when the soul loses center, when speech loses mercy, when desire loses direction, and when holiness has to withdraw until the vessel becomes trustworthy again. The repair is honest return again and again until the inner world becomes simple before the living God. This chapter is severe, but it is also merciful. It reveals the anatomy of exile so that we can recognize the anatomy of redemption. The whole world is repaired through the same path that repairs one person. Remove the false god. Guard the dignity of life. Sanctify the vessel of union. And return the flow to the one. Then the name becomes one. The soul becomes one. And the Shechinah is no longer exposed in exile, but clothed again in honor, resting in the garden of a restored human being. Shalom.